Hunger Games, the prequel shit, whatever the title is. What is it? The Ballad of Songbird and Snakes or some shit. I don't fucking know. I I really don't care. Honestly, I'll be honest with you guys. I reviewed the Hunger Games movies and I bought copies of the Blu-rays for each individual movie on clearance, right? And then I sent those off uh, to the library. I donated them just because that's how little I care about this franchise. I only bought those to do videos on them, and I donated them to a library that has a little movie section for people to rent movies that they like, sort of thing. And so for me, like, I don't really care about this franchise. I haven't really read the books. I've heard good things about the books. Not that I really care to read them, right? I don't know. For whatever reason, I don't have interest. And going into this movie, I kind of was like, do people really care about this prequel thing? Because I know there's a prequel book. Never read it, but I've heard people say that it's a thing that exists. Like, I've never heard anyone actually talk about the prequel book. It's just kind of there. And so for me, I was just like, I didn't really know what to expect from this movie. It did have Peter Dinklage in it, and what's the actress who plays she's in Suicide Squad, Amanda Waller. What's her name? Viola Davis. That's it. She's great. So I just kind of wanted to check out this movie just because I was going to review for you guys. Really, that's the only reason I'd ever watch a Hunger Games movie, just to review it. And I was like, okay. I did not like this movie. I think there are things that I actually did surprisingly enjoy about this movie. But overall, I just did not like this movie. I think this is a pretty bad movie. So let's start with the things I enjoy. Number one, the obvious. Peter Dinklage is great. Peter Dinklage, I don't think has ever truly phoned in a performance other than maybe like Pixels or random shit like that. For the most part, he's given his A game no matter what movies he's in, and he's actually given a lot to work with here. There's a moment towards the end when he talks about the making of the Hunger Games and his character's involvement with that, and it's heartbreaking, it's emotional, and it's wrenching, and you can tell there's great remorse and regret to everything that's gone on. And by the end of the movie, you see that kind of come forward. So that's a great moment. Definitely a highlight of the movie. There's some decent cinematography. Nothing that was too stand out, but it was at least decent. And I did really like how the set design and kind of costume design is very 1920s vibe to it, but also a very futuristic dystopian vibe to it. And that was really cool to see. And so, yeah, I really did not like this movie, though. So let's get into my negatives. Those are the only things I thought were really positive. First off, let's start with the pacing of this movie. This is a 2 hour and 45 minute movie. This movie could have been 2 hours and 30 and it would have been fine. It did not need to be as long as it is. There's a lot of sequences of Rachel Zellweger's character just singing, and she just has no reason to be singing. She's just like, all right. You can tell that's why she was only why they cast her to sing. I like Rachel Zellweger. She's great in West Side Story and other movies that I've seen her in. Like, I thought she was a fun character in Shazam, even though her character wasn't written the best and kind of creepy. But, like, I think she's good in other movies, but she's awful in this movie. Actually, I won't say she's awful. She's just bland. Because she's just given nothing to work with. She just has nothing to give to the performance. She's just kind of there. It's like, okay, there's that, and then there's Viola Davis, who is acting in a different movie. She's acting really bizarre and kind of crazy, and you can tell that Viola Davis is having fun, but she definitely felt very awkward and like, you're hamming it up a little bit too much, and that was just weird. And just, yeah, there's stuff like that. And then the other thing I just didn't care for, while I enjoyed a lot of the world building and stuff in this movie, I feel like the actual, stuff, the main part of the story, which is President Snow, I just did not give a shit about his character. I mean, for most of the movie, he's pretty one note, and then towards the end of the movie, you start to see a darker side to him, see him become this kind of, what we know of that character through the Hunger Games franchise. If you know, you know what I mean? But, like, for me, it's just, like, I don't really care about his character. I don't really have interest with it. And that was my biggest problem with this movie. There were interesting ideas put into place with this movie, but, like, at the end of the day, I don't really give a shit about anyone in this movie, because what do I give a shit about President Snow? First of all, the character's an asshole. And a terrible human being. And also, again, I think these Hunger Games movies, they try to play this this angle of like, oh, these kids, being forced in arenas to kill each other. And they play it so straight, but I feel like there should be more satire involved with it, more humor involved with it. I feel like that would be stronger. But there really isn't. Because the idea of these rich people getting together and just throwing a party where they all murder fucking kids, It's just like, I feel like there should be more satire and fun with that, but that's just me. I just really did not care for this movie. And the other thing I really did not care for was the script. There's just so many lines of dialogue that are just fucking shitty. Like, there's a scene towards the end where our main guy, Snow, is like calling out for this girl. I forget her name. Was it Lucy or something like that? But he's not just screaming Lucy. He's like screaming her full name. Like, who the fuck? I'm not gonna go scream someone's full name in the middle of the woods. Like, I'm just gonna scream, Lucy or whatever her name was. I don't really give a shit about what her character's name is, but just a lot of weird dialogue like that was just weird. There's some good dialogue that actually worked, but then there's other lines that just felt really weird and bizarre. I just did not like that. The last thing I didn't like was really just how much shit and just annoying references there were to the Hunger Games movies in this movie. Like, hey, it's the Hunger Games. Well, it's just like, no, it didn't, like, it didn't come up naturally at all. There's like one part they're like, I've never seen a bird like that, but they call it a mockingjay or some shit. Or like there's one point where I think they were talking about a flower and they're like, it's a Katniss, and it's like, God, shut the fuck up. It's just dumb. The theater had a decent amount of people in this movie. I wouldn't be surprised if this movie doesn't perform very strong. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. I just really did not care for this movie. It was just kind of there, and it wasn't my thing.